Welcome to Venture Voices, a podcast series brought to you by the Enterprise Development Center, Pan Atlantic University. This podcast series will be exploring the journeys of amazing entrepreneurs across various sectors, not just in Nigeria, but globally. My name is Neko Kekaru, and I will be your host on this series. Today, I have the pleasure of having Goke and Bimbo Balogun of So Fresh. Welcome, Goke. Welcome, Bimbo.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Fresh is such a popular brand, and most people have always wondered, why So Fresh? Why that sector? Is that something that you guys planned all along, or did it just happen naturally?
I'll say it happened naturally. Something we were both passionate about, and it had a lot to do around how we grew up, the experiences we had growing up in Ilorin. And so when we moved to Lagos, we wanted to replicate that same experience. People having access to fresh fruits and vegetables and other food produce, and that evolved into us, preparing meals for our customers. So it was just something we were both passionate about, and then it grew and developed, from there into this amazing healthy food brand.
I mean, I love fruits. I'm sure if we hadn't started this business, fruits and veg will be one of the things that would take me to the market. Like, I would eat it all of the time. So like he said, we're just both passionate about it, and we love to eat right all the time.
Okay, so I get it. I get the passion that both of you have for this. I understand, growing up in Ilorin and all that, but I'm just wondering, I'm running a business with my spouse, right? So, is there any advantage running this business with your spouse? How has it been?
It's been really good. The business is thriving, so I'm sure that is one of the outcomes to show that it is working. If I would track back to 2009, when the initial idea came, we were both in paid employment, and so we were relatively earning well. Money wasn't an issue. I guess we were restless. I guess we just wanted more. We wanted to make an impact in our immediate environment, and we were thinking, what can we sell? What business can we get into? We bounced off so many interesting ideas, but my husband just muted an idea around selling fresh fruits and vegetables. And the way he presented it, he didn't present it in a fancy way, because I'm a lawyer. He presented it in a very market woman-ish way, like, would you love to sell fresh tomatoes, fresh watermelons, and all of that? And I'm like, oh yes, because we had lived briefly in South Africa, how we would shop at Fruit and Veg City, we'll shop at Spa, and we just loved the fruit and vegetable section. And so he was, in a much more serious paid employment, so he wouldn't have the time to be available for the business. And he was like, would you like to do this? And I'm saying, oh yes, I believe in it. So, that conversation just meant that we had to do this together. And because of his own well-grounded training around business structure, we started it out in a structured way. So it made the journey a lot more easier. Its challenges and complexities are there, but it's now much more better than when we started.
Okay, so if I hear you correctly, it appears that possibly the roles were defined within the business for both of you.
Yeah, so that was something we tried to do right from the start. We had clear roles in the business. It wasn't just, couple or two people trying to do everything together. We sat down and looked at what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, what are the circumstances that everybody are. Like she said, at the initial stage, I was, doing offshore work. So there are times I was not even been around at all. That means at that point, she had to take, leadership and run the business. And in the very early stage, she actually, was the one leading and growing the business. So at every stage, we looked at what was the best situation for the business, and we defined the roles around that. And speaking about what advantage does it mean having couples running business? I mean, a lot of advantages. Like they say, it becomes only at the top when you're running business alone. So having that second person that is like-minded, you have the same goal, you have the same, vision, you trust each other. Having that second person to bounce ideas around, and just the way business is, there sometimes I'm fed up, and then she picks me up. There are sometimes, she's also, maybe frustrated about a particular thing, and then I'm there to, so having two people to run the business. And just imagine flying a 16-hour flight, and then one pilot wants to rest, the other one is flying. So I think that's the biggest advantage, having two people that are focused on the same thing. Two heads will always be better than one, especially when they are driving towards the same destination.
Okay, I hear you, and I'm seeing a lot of synergy and all that. But I've always wondered, how do you ensure that, business, because you're together in the house, you're together in the office. So how do you ensure that, the business doesn't overshadow your personal relationship?
I think it's discipline. I think it's commitment. And I think it's a decision. Being very deliberate, being very intentional, and making the choices that would lead you to the outcome that you both desire. So at the beginning, right, separating work and family life was not really very easy. Everything just to each other. We realized that we were always talking about the business because it was at the very, very early stage, right? So we are always communicating, and this also has helped open and honest communication. We're always bouncing off ideas. We're always sharing what our thoughts are and giving ourselves feedback as well. Like, hey, it's like we are losing our romantic, life.
Absolutely. I can just begin to imagine.
And we are just always talking about the business. It's like we have found like a hiding place where we are no longer really, talking about ourselves and being intentional about growing this side of us. But then, again, because we are a couple that are so deeply committed into each other, wanting the best for each other, wanting to allow each other shine and also jointly shine as well. So giving ourselves feedback made us step back, look at it again, and then consciously put structure in place to say, okay, can we try? If we get home, nobody is opening laptops and nobody is doing this. I mean, we tried it. And then maturity over time, and the kids came on, and then we also know that we have to parent them well. We can't pour all the energy into the business, and our employees, our children are there, our lives are there. So it made us track back to actually have conversations around, okay, this is how we should, schedule our activities, our routines, just so we are building everything side by side and none is totally ignored. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. So I've always wondered, right? And I guess I should be asking this on camera, but I will all the same. How do you handle conflicts regarding business decisions as a couple? Because I would just say to myself, okay, I can imagine I sort that out in the office and then I go home, and home is different. But for both of you, you're still going to get home. So when you have these conflicts, how do you manage? How do you sort that out?
Also, we've had to learn over time. It's a pretty difficult dynamics. I must really admit that it's a pretty difficult dynamics because it's even both ways. Then something happens in the house, and then you get to the office and you need to work together, and then something happens, at the office, and then you still need to, be husbands and wife at home. I think a number of things that makes it easy and gets better over time is, number one, I would say, deep commitment to each other. And then, secondly is mutual respect. So I respect her for who she is, because what happens, especially in this climb, is men tend not to respect their women when it comes to work. So then becomes your husband and you're telling me this and all of that. But once roles have been defined, for example, she's always handled the HR, and for example, if she feels strongly about something that has to relate with HR, if I employed an HR director as a good CEO, would I not listen to the HR director? But then when I'm looking at her, I try to look at her as the HR director at work, not as being but my wife. So I think being able to have that, separation. So I'll say mutual respect for the roles each of you are playing within the organization, and just constantly talking about, what you don't like, what doesn't work, and then over time you get to really understand each other. And I think also having the knowledge that, both of you are coming from different backgrounds, different experiences, and that's going to shape how you see things. Because when I look back at some of the conflicts we've had, it was just a matter of we both want the same thing, but based on my experience, even profession as a lawyer, the way she's going to approach a situation is different from me that, I'm a biochemist. Just that alone can cause conflict. So recognizing that we're not always going to see it the same way, but can you check that both of you want the same thing? And then one person must always be willing to compromise. And it doesn't make sense if it's only one person compromises. So I just think it's, walking through it, having that trust, and both of you knowing that we want the same thing for the business. And then it just gets easier over time. But it's a really,
I'm sure it's not
Who wants to
easy.
share?
No, it's a difficult dynamics.
I want to share an experience.
Okay,
I
because I was
mean,
going to
just
ask
bring
you
this-
if you've
Yeah,
ever encountered
yes.
either a business conflict and whether it affected the
Yes.
home life or
Yeah.
vice versa.
Absolutely.
Yes, I remember an incident that happened during one of our management meetings, and he was making his points. But while he was speaking, in my mind, I was already boiling, like I don't buy into that idea. And I remembered when he mentioned the lawyer, side of me, and then I'm waiting for him to land so that I can make my points as well. And so as soon as he landed, I think I made my points, and the approach, rubbed off, negatively. And so after the meeting, I think that was the last thing we had at work that day. And then as soon as we got into the car, I already saw his face was furious. And then he was like, oh, why did I, respond that way? Does he talk to me like that during meetings? And then, of course, I apologized. But, it will take time for that emotions to cool down. But in such situations, what also helps is to check for motive. Was the intention really to disrespect you in front of the team, or the motive was to make your points, but the approach was wrong? So when you're able to actually clarify what the issue is, the individual can intentionally make adjustments when necessary, especially if you truly want this relationship to blossom and to work. So that has also helped. Being very honest with the feedbacks that you get and making conscious efforts to adjust, where necessary, so that the journey can be much smoother.
Okay, I hear that. So are there some specific rules or routines that you both consciously, deliberately decided on that would help you sort of maybe like separate work decisions from personal time? Okay,
yes. So early on, it will be channel of communication. I wouldn't forget, there was a time he got back from work and he was asking me for updates on some things, and I, in my usual way, was sending it on WhatsApp, and then he said, no, send it to me by email. In my head, I'm like, oh, so this our relationship is getting formal, on some side. But yes, send it by email because there are just some information that for record purposes, we have to be able to trace, the communication. And so that's, just ensuring that your communication is structured. And it is also
And then
helping
I remember,
me.
I remember something around the WhatsApp. So at the point, I just felt like we should have our space to be husbands and wife. Like I'm talking about, an operational issue.
Right.
And then I want to say I love you. I didn't just want
You
it to
didn't
be
want
flowing.
it to mix up.
So we did something that said, okay, we'll do, couple things on WhatsApp, and then we'll talk business on Slack.
On
So
Slack.
we want to talk operations, and there was a period we really maintained that. It's not always easy. Sometimes it just slips into each other.
Sometimes it still
But that was
happens.
the kind of like, let's separate this. I want to keep, this about our personal space, and then emails, Slack, any other thing we can talk
Cannot
about.
do for business. And that makes sense,
business
actually.
there. Yeah.
And it's very, if you can imbibe that, I think for those listening and thinking about it, if you guys can imbibe that, that would be very good. So I think another, you wanted to say
I wanted
someone.
to say that, and that has also helped, my orientation, my mindset around corporate communication. And it's still that attitude that one will transfer to the team, okay? Not just allowing everything to go on WhatsApp. There has to be a clear-cut, structure around what are the things that, you need to send to me via email. So if I get it, it's easier to, transfer that culture. Yeah, I was looking for the word culture. Yes.
Then talking about family life, right? Another very deliberate thing I think we did earlier on. So earlier on, we started the business, had our baby. We used to do school bus. And then you know how it is, the boss picks the kid in the morning, we go off on business, come back, boss returns, and then it's business. So at a point in time, we felt we were just going to all go apart. So we made a decision that we were going to take the kids to school.
By ourselves.
And bring them back. And that's what we've done for like the last 10 years. So it's actually a bonding time. We take them to school every morning, and then we take them back from school. So those, 3-4 hours in the kind of traffic
commuting.
is actually a lot of family time that we try to play,
bond,
talk. When the kids were small, we used to play games while going to school and all of that. So I think that was one of the very deliberate things, we did.
I think I can imagine that working, because if I think to when I was doing school run for my daughter, so my kids went to day high schools, and when I pick her, from the beginning, from when she enters, I say someone stop and then rewind and play. Everything that happens, she downloads.
I think it's a girl thing.
It's a girl thing.
Now
She starts
our
to
daughter
download.
is the same. Mommy, I miss you, and then she will start.
Everything that happens.
Were you thinking about me in your class? Did you focus?
No, but that's a
sweet.
very good one, and I like that. And I think even for those that are starting out or running businesses,
so I think for
something
individuals it will be different. So it's just finding those specific, things around you where you can connect outside of business.
And that brings me now to your personal relationship. What are some of the things that you do to nurture it? Because the way you've nurtured the business, so today, how many branches do we have of So Fresh across the country? 12 branches across how many cities?
4.
5. Yeah,
5 cities.
We'll say
Okay.
Ogun State,
But you didn't start like that. It probably started from your home kitchen.
No, Ogba, the very first outlet.
Very
We
first
never
outlet
worked
was
the
from
outlet.
Ogba.
Yes.
And then you're now from 1 to 12.
Yes.
So you had to nurture that business.
Absolutely.
First the idea to the business, from Ogba to the 12 that we have. So now your personal relationship as Goke and Bimbo, how are you able to nurture that? Because I'm just wondering, I don't even know whether I can do I can't even imagine, I don't know whether I can work with my husband like this every day. So I really respect that. So how are you nurturing it deliberately?
We were really close, we were friends, so we already had a very good working relationship, so that it was based off of that, that we could really say, okay, let's go into business. And then, like I said, nurturing the business, again, there are just things we do. So like we have, year round, we have, a family retreat where we go off It could be for 3 days, it could be for a week. We go off, just,
With the children.
sometimes with the children, sometimes alone. I remember like 2 years ago, our daughter was young, and then we took off. If up to now, our first son always still has a record of the times we've traveled without them. And says, you must take me where you're going. So we just find time to be alone by ourselves. Also sometimes with the children. And one routine we do these days is we just have breakfasts together. Of course, we don't eat breakfast most time at home, but sometimes when we get to work, say let's go out for lunch. So we just keep finding those pockets to have time together, and actually be in each other's life. And then I think that the weekends. So I mean, as the business has grown and evolved, we are not as involved. There was a time we were almost going to the business every day. We have weekends now, and a lot of those weekends are just by ourselves, together. But there are a few weekends where we have other things to do, but most of the time, we're together, and doing couple things.
Doing couple things.
Yeah, and additionally, we've been each other's biggest cheerleader, like biggest supporter. Aside the business, we have our individual, dreams and interests and passion. And so how are we supporting each other to bloom? So for instance, there's nothing I'm doing that my husband is not like the biggest engine room that is supporting it. Even if I'm doing online training, he will help me prepare my slides. I want to do something, he is always there. And so, and the same with me. And so we are even happy to see each other shine. Nobody is afraid or insecure to see, oh, you're the only one they're talking about on social media, or your face is only, no. So it has helped. And I think fundamentally is the fact that we were both really close friends before we got married. I've been exposed to his family. I love the kind of environment where they were raised. So I know that what I am seeing is what I'll get in this man. So there is no point complicating my life by adding business relationship. We can just do the family thing, our marriage. But one of the biggest things that also killed this kind of relationship will be financial, issues and the issue of respect, leadership, and all of those things. So for him, he's so, in fact, very financially disciplined. I am the one that even spend more. He keeps and invests more. So I know that that is how he would treat the business funds. That is how he would manage it as, the overall leader. So am I ready to work with that? Oh, yes. And then so our wahala would be reduced if finances is not an issue. So yes, it's just happy to see each other happy, yeah.
Okay. So I think I want to ask both of you the same question now. And it's, it would be things around lessons that you've learned working together. So what has been your biggest lesson that you've learned working with your spouse? And then the same thing for you, Gokin.
I think the biggest lesson would be that you should work with someone that genuinely trusts and loves you as a couple, someone that trusts in your capacity to deliver on your responsibilities, someone that is not scared to hear your voice loud in the room. Yeah, so I have been blessed to work with such a great man like my husband, because he's just like an ideal leader who just wants, to influence people to thrive. So yeah, my biggest lesson would be that I chose right. I'm grateful for it. So yeah.
I hear a lot of trust there, genuine trust and loves, and someone that isn't scared. I really like that, to hear your voice loud, and is there to support you all the way through it. Okay, how about you, Goke?
I mean, from my side, I'll repeat something I've said again, because I'm thinking about the men in this climb. Is mutual respect, right? the same respect, you expect your wife to have for you, you should also, have that mutual respect. To respect her as an authority in her space, especially within the work context. And that allows her to, be at her best and also give her best. And then I would say that, right from the beginning, with benefit of hindsight, I think one thing that really worked well, because we both had a clear vision and goal of what we wanted for the business in the different aspects. She mentioned finances. So in the early stage of the business, we had the same idea about how we wanted to run the business. It was not time for us to take from the business. We both agreed that we were going to keep, investing back into the business. As simple as that sounds, it could be a big source of conflict. So around the business, the different key elements of the business, it's important to have an agreement to say, this is how we want to run the business. This is what we're going to do. And I think, for me, having somebody that saw, side by side was helpful. The last point I would like to say is, both of you must be open to feedback and allow each other grow. And she mentioned something around checking for motive. As long as I know that whatever happens, she has, the best interest of the business at heart and our relationship as well, I'm open to allow for growth or understand our point of view. So I would say allow each other make mistakes, allow each other to grow, and be very open minded.
Okay. Wow, I like that. Mutual respect. And you're right, especially for us here in Nigeria. It's so easy for the spouse to say, am I not still your husband? I'm still the head of the home. Even though the person says, well, but we're in the business now. But yeah, mutual respect. I can imagine how that would be an issue.
Sorry, can I still add one more thing? It's also important for individuals to have a dream of their own.
To have a dream.
Have a goal. Have something that you want to achieve in life, so that the business will not grow and then you are feeling lost, or there's a sense of resentment that, but I am lost in all of this. I can't find myself anymore. I have poured everything into the business. But there should be a side of you that yearns for expression, where this is what I want to do. So for instance, I head the human resources department, and I love to nurture talent. I love to see people grow. So I am doing what I love, and then it is also helping the business to grow. And from that passion of mine, I have found other ways to express it, to make impact, and of course to make more money. So I'm happy. As the business is growing, my personal life, my personal dream is also being nurtured in the process. So while you have clear roles and responsibilities, ensure you are playing to your areas of strength and passion. So that way it will be like, oh, you are just doing what you enjoy, and nobody is forcing you to go to the office today. You are just doing it because that is where your strength and passion lies.
That's fantastic. That's so powerful. And you're right. Because, we do get lost along the line. And a lot of resentment will
because
come.
So many things are happening. There was a time we were opening like 4 branches at a time. That means everybody needs to do. Before you know it, you're just burnt out. And there was a point in my life where really I was burnt out. In fact, I told him, I'm not doing it again. I am telling you, I got to that point where I called my husband. I said, I'm not doing it again. Like, just go on. Let me be. I don't want to die. Like, he said, no, tell me about it. What is the issue? What is the plan? These are the things that makes relationship work. Somebody is genuinely willing to hear you out and make adjustments where necessary. And so I told him, because at the time I was the COO, so operations, so intense. Now, restaurants, it's a lot. And so I'm like, no, I want to do HR only. Can we find another operations person to manage day-to-day Apple, the floor is not clean? I want to deal with human beings and train them and groom them. And my husband made the adjustments structurally, and then we looked at the organogram again, and we moved things around. And since then, I've been myself, right? So what do you want first as an individual? Don't say, my husband wants me to come and join him in the business. For what? To what end? What's the purpose? What is your own individual purpose in life? So having your own clear purpose and finding how it aligns to the company's purpose.
Okay, so I'm going to be very naughty now.
Right.
Because you said there was a time you wanted to stop.
Yes, sir.
And he said no. So if one of you now wants to step back, how do you guys approach the conversation? If truly you say, you know what, I'm done.
Oh,
I've done so fresh.
Okay,
I
yeah,
don't
so
see.
I'm done or I'm done is different.
No, I'm done.
I'm done.
I don't want so fresh.
No, my I'm done then was that don't even, when you even come back from office, maybe don't even tell me about updates. Like I was burnt out. But there are
my
some
own question,
I'm done, right? That would be like,
I don't want to be part of So Fresh. If one of you decides...
But maybe for a mutual plan that maybe the kids, somebody have to just step aside. And so I'm saying that we have to check the thing behind the I'm done. So
how will you approach the conversation?
Oh yeah, we would.
So Bimbo now says, you know what? Okay, I've been there, done that. So Fresh is a good brand, and I don't want to do So Fresh anymore.
So I think that the difference when she referred to you was like at the midpoint where the business was like, so
growing and
at
would
this
need
point,
us. Yeah.
I think it's at a different
yes,
stage.
at a different maturity
But
stage.
she still wants to say I'm done.
It's a conversation.
I'm just
we can have.
imagine.
Yes.
There would be no ill feeling at this point.
I think
it
will.
No.
We could
It
work
will be why, and if the reasons make
what next?
sense, what next? Fantastic.
So what will still be the relationship between you and the business, as shareholders, as board
and
members?
between us, like
you guys are sounding very calm. Okay, not that I'm praying. I just wanted to be naughty.
And the reason, let me just be clear. The reason is we've actually had this conversation.
Okay.
Because we've now done this for 15 years, the reality is somebody might just say, I want to do so. We've had these conversations in the last 1 year.
That's why you guys are answering me like this, because if you haven't had that conversation, I doubt you'll be answering me like this.
But again, nothing like concrete for now, but it's something we're starting to now talk about. Even if not now, maybe in another 3, 4, 5 years. Somebody might just want to face something else completely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're wrapping this up now. And this podcast, the title is Venture Voices, deliberately because we want to hear from those that have ventured so that others that listen to it, that watch the podcast, they can be inspired, they can be informed, and, they understand that, I'm not the only one going through what I'm going through. So my last question really would be around, for those of us out there, husband and wife, spouses that are thinking of, setting up a business together, what kind of advice would you give them if they're considering that? And I want to hear from both of you.
Yeah, so my first question would be why?
Okay,
why?
They should ask themselves questions.
Yeah, why?
Okay.
Why? Must the two of you do this together? And if you really want to do this together, why? So the purpose is very fundamental.
Okay, the purpose.
Because purpose powers everything. That purpose is what will drive every other thing. So that somebody won't feel like, oh, I was compelled or talked into. It was my choice from the get-go. It was my choice. And that choice, that purpose, will continue to fuel how you see everything, how you receive feedback, how you dream, because dreaming never stops. Like this year now, we have set the objective for the year. So it will just keep powering everything. And then if we both really want to do this, then we have to also talk about the home front, talk about finances, and then we go into other details. But it's so important to know that this is my choice. Intentionally, I want to build with you because I trust that we can build together. So what are the nitty-gritty that we need to do? Yeah, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And then
I could say many things, but I think I want to start with saying they should test it first.
They should
and I'm going to test it. And I'm going to use our example. And I'm going to say why it's so important to test. I was in paid employment, she was in private law practice. And we started the business aside from those two.
While those were
Yeah.
still...
She did private law practice for 3 years while we were running the business. And when we started to see some
Traction.
growth, traction,
Yeah.
she left.
Yeah.
Now, it's very risky for both of you
To
to
drop
jump into
everything and
business.
focus on
It
it
may not
alone.
work.
Makes
And then you
sense.
increase the tension.
Makes sense.
So she
Absolutely.
dropped the practice and went full-time So Fresh. I still did 3 additional years before I also left my... By the time I was leaving, we had 2 locations,
Oh, wow.
Okpebi and Ikoyi,
Ikoyi.
and we had seen the trajectory, and we were about doing the 3rd one at the airport. So we thought if both of us really combine now, we can add
the
forward to this
potential
thing.
is huge.
So we
The market
technically
is
attested
huge.
for 6 years, not only the business, but even working together.
Working
Together.
together, I love that.
So if you test and see, okay, can we work together? Can we grow? Can we learn? That's what those test years allows you to do. So I think that would be the biggest advice I would give, that
Give them.
everybody should test it out to see how compatible they are.
Right.
And I want to say it's not really, there may be a lot more advantage even in your spouse not working directly with you. You can give your advice, it doesn't have to be day to day, but then if it works out well, it's great. So I just ask them to test it to be sure that they really have that smooth working relationship. And even if they don't have it, they can build it in those tests where everybody's still doing their own thing. And then gradually they move to, running it together.
Yeah.
Okay, and that makes absolute sense.
Absolutely.
Because if it's a couple, if everything fails, that's all the resources, and we still got bills to pay.
Intention, yeah.
Okay.
So you really have to think about, the truth that, for example, by the time I was now leaving paid employment, I'd worked in that particular company for about 10 years, and I was living with some good severance package. So that served as a
Like a
cushion in
cushion,
case
yes. Anything.
Yeah, so even for a lot of, I think a lot of men that want their wife to leave where they are there and join them, you really want to see how much you've mitigated the risk of things not,
Working out.
One thing I can say, just listen to both of you, is that you're not the average couple. I've, just through this conversation we've had, there's a lot of intentionality. And I think that's actually what is required to run a business, but to run a business together with your spouse.
Yes.
And just being deliberate and intentional about, I've just been writing and writing and writing, but, Bimbo, what you said, purpose powers everything. So for the couples that are thinking about it, that's the first thing, testing the water, and then it can't work if there's no mutual respect.
At all.
You really, really need to
You can't
respect.
take instructions from me as
and just say because
or
I'm the wife.
vice
No, mutual respect
and
has to be
right
there.
from the onset, he even hates for our staff to see me as Oga's wife. He hates that idea. He would rather you see her as the COO and see me as the CEO and deal with that on that professional level.
I love that.
Yes.
Because actually that's what it is.
That is what it is.
And that's you living. So, at times people might mouth it, mutual respect, but you're actually living it.
Yes,
so for you to
absolutely.
not like that's a true sign.
And we try to, even at work, like the incident she referred to earlier on, we made sure to tell each other, if we don't always have to agree with each other. There are times that we are divided in management.
It's just the approach.
She's on another side and I'm on another side. Because at that point, it's not husband and wife. We're talking about business.
Two
it's
partners.
management.
Absolutely.
So we
Two
don't always have to
experts.
agree on a particular thing. Everybody is free to say their mind. It encourages that individuality. So one person doesn't feel like I'm always in the shadow of another person.
Yes.
I don't have a free thought, a free
voice.
mind.
I don't have a voice. I don't have a say.
Each couple must have their voice within that business. One should not be under the shadow of another one.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
And for those that are watching, so I've had the pleasure of having a conversation, because that's what it was, on this episode of Venture Voices with the So Fresh team. They have 12 branches across 5 cities.
Yes.
And this is Goke and Bimbo Balogun. Thank you so much for inspiring us. Thank you for showing us that it's possible that husband and wife can actually do it together. And you've done it together for what, 15 years?
Yes.
15 years.
Thanks.
Wow. So the child that they gave birth then is preparing for university in under 2 years.
Our first son is already
Whoa. All right.
16. And we want to say a big thank you to for being a shining example in the enterprise space. I mean, we can't share the So Fresh story without EDC and you as well. So we thank you for what you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Goke, Bimbo, 30 years from now, what are you guys looking at? Where do we see So Fresh? 30 years.
We see So Fresh in multiple African states. Our vision is to be the prime destination for healthy lifestyle in Africa. And we are just still in Nigeria. So 30 years from now, So Fresh is in multiple African states and more countries in the continent. We see So Fresh also raising leaders who are also powering so many other big enterprises in the world. I see So Fresh, where we are right now, as a platform for even raising leaders, raising role models. And so in 30 years, we should have, leaders of multinationals, and they'll be like, yeah, I started my career in So Fresh. So that would be my dream. Fantastic. And my joy.
And you, Goke?
I think Bibo has captured it clearly. First 30 years, see So Fresh thriving across geographical locations. Obviously, I don't expect to still be at So Fresh actively, but sitting
on the board,
or sitting in my room and watching the growth, hearing the great news. So that remains the goal and the vision for So Fresh.
Okay. So I'm hearing legacy, and I'm seeing very strong corporate governance structures.
That's right. That's
for sustainability.
Right. That's right.
Fantastic. Okay, so thank you very much. So thank you for watching this episode of Venture Voices, brought to you by Enterprise Women's Center, Pan-Atlantic University. And I've had the pleasure of having a conversation, because that's what it's been, with Goke and Bimbo Balogun of So Fresh. So until next time, keep venturing and keep being inspired.